The morning mist clung to the ancient trees like ghostly fingers, hiding secrets that would soon turn a routine mission into a deadly game of survival. 12 elite Navy SEALs entered those woods expecting to extract a high-value target. Only 3 would walk out alive, saved by someone they never saw coming, a woman whose story would challenge everything the military thought they knew about warfare in the 21st century. What happened in those 48 hours would become classified for over a decade. The official report listed it as training accident. The families were told their sons died serving their country. But the truth was far more complex, involving international arms dealers, a rogue military contractor, and a mysterious female operative whose identity remains unknown to this day. This is the story the Pentagon didn't want you to hear. This is about how 12 of America's finest warriors walked into a trap that should have killed them all, and how one woman's deadly precision turned the tables on an enemy they never saw coming. It's about brotherhood, betrayal, and the thin line between heroism and vengeance that defines modern warfare. The woods of Eastern Europe hold many secrets. Some should never be disturbed. Others need to be told, no matter the cost. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison checked his watch for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. The extraction was supposed to be simple: get in, secure the asset, get out. 48 hours maximum. He looked across the helicopter's cabin at his 11-man team, each warrior representing years of specialized training and countless successful missions. They were the best of the best, hand-picked for Operation Silent Thunder. The helicopter's rotors beat steadily through the morning air as they approached the drop zone in the remote forests of eastern Romania. Their target was Dr. Alexander Volkov, a Russian biochemist who had contacted American intelligence 3 weeks earlier, claiming he had information about a new biological weapon being developed by a rogue military contractor. The contractor, Blackwater descendant Phoenix Solutions, had supposedly gone dark, operating outside any government oversight. Master Chief Petty Officer Carlos Reyes, Morrison's second-in-command, leaned over the map spread across his knees. The landing zone was a small clearing 15 kilometers from the abandoned research facility where Volkov was reportedly hiding. Intelligence suggested the area was lightly patrolled, with maybe a handful of private security contractors protecting the perimeter. "Feels too easy," muttered Petty Officer First Class Danny Kim, adjusting his sniper rifle case. Kim had been with SEAL Team 6 for 8 years, and his instincts rarely failed him. Russian biochemist just walks away from a black project and calls us for help? Something's not right. Morrison nodded but kept his thoughts to himself. The mission had been rushed through approval channels faster than normal, and their usual intelligence officer had been replaced at the last minute with someone none of them had worked with before. But orders were orders, and they had a job to do. The pilot's voice crackled through their headsets. 5 minutes to drop zone, gentlemen. Weather looks good, no air traffic in the area. Petty Officer Second Class Marcus Thompson stood and began checking the team's gear one final time. Thompson was their demolitions expert, a quiet man from Alabama who could make anything explode or, more importantly for this mission, make sure nothing exploded when they didn't want it to. His backpack contained enough C4 to level a city block, along with more sophisticated tools for bypassing electronic security systems. As they approached the landing zone, Morrison studied each of his men. There was Rodriguez, their medic, reviewing his medical supplies with the methodical precision that had saved dozens of lives over the years. Jenkins and Parker, the team's communication specialists, were running final checks on their radio equipment and satellite uplinks. Washington and Brooks, both combat engineers, were reviewing building schematics and discussing entry points in hushed tones. The youngest member of their team, Petty Officer Third Class Tyler Mason, sat quietly near the helicopter's rear door. At 24, Mason was on his first deployment with the elite unit, having transferred from regular SEAL teams just 3 months earlier. His specialty was urban warfare and close-quarters combat, skills that had earned him a reputation despite his young age. "Remember, we're going in dark," Morrison called out over the engine noise. "No air support, no extraction team on standby. We're completely on our own until we reach the secondary extraction point tomorrow night." This was standard procedure for sensitive operations, but something about the complete isolation bothered several team members. Usually, they had some form of backup plan, some way to call for help if things went wrong. This time, they were truly alone. The helicopter touched down in the clearing with barely a whisper, its specially modified rotors designed for silent operations. The team moved out quickly, their movements coordinated through years of training. Within 30 seconds, the helicopter was gone, disappearing into the morning sky and leaving them alone in the vast wilderness. Morrison pulled out his GPS unit and confirmed their position. The research facility was a 3-hour hike through dense forest, following what appeared to be an old logging road that hadn't been used in decades. The trees towered overhead, their thick canopy blocking out most of the sunlight and creating an almost perpetual twilight even in the middle of the day. They moved in standard formation, with Kim and Mason taking point as scouts, followed by the main group, and Thompson and Washington bringing up the rear. The forest was eerily quiet, no bird songs, no insect noises, nothing but the soft sound of their boots on the mossy ground and the occasional crack of a branch in the distance. After an hour of hiking, Kim held up his hand, signaling the team to stop. He had spotted something through his rifle scope, fresh tire tracks crossing the old road about 200 meters ahead. Morrison moved up to join him, studying the tracks through his binoculars. Military vehicles, Morrison whispered into his radio. At least 3, maybe 4. Tracks are less than 6 hours old. This was the first sign that their intelligence might be wrong. The area was supposed to be abandoned, with only light security around the research facility itself. Military vehicles suggested a much larger presence than they had been briefed about. Rodriguez, monitoring radio frequencies on his equipment, caught fragments of conversation in what sounded like Russian. The transmissions were encrypted, but the fact that there was any radio traffic at all meant they were walking into a much more complex situation than planned. As they continued toward the facility, the team noticed other signs of recent activity. Fresh footprints in muddy areas, cigarette butts that couldn't be more than a day old, and, most concerning of all, what appeared to be carefully concealed observation posts in the trees above their heads. "We're being watched," Mason whispered into his radio, his training having taught him to recognize the subtle signs of surveillance. Morrison made the decision to continue forward but changed their approach. Instead of following the road directly to the facility, he ordered the team to move deeper into the forest, approaching their target from an unexpected direction. It would add several hours to their journey, but it might give them the element of surprise they would need. What none of them realized was that their every move had been tracked since the moment they stepped off the helicopter. Hidden cameras, motion sensors, and human observers had been monitoring their progress, reporting back to a command center that had been expecting them. The trap had been set weeks ago, using Dr. Volkov as bait. The real Dr. Volkov was already dead, killed the same day he had supposedly contacted American intelligence. The man they were coming to rescue was actually Captain Dmitry Kozlov, a former Spetsnaz operative now working for Phoenix Solutions. Phoenix Solutions had been planning this operation for months, using their contacts in various intelligence agencies to identify and target elite American Special Forces units. Their goal was to capture or kill as many highly trained operators as possible, both to eliminate threats to their operations and to demonstrate their capabilities to potential clients around the world. The research facility they were approaching was no longer abandoned. It had been transformed into a sophisticated command and control center, complete with advanced surveillance equipment, heavy weapons, and 43 highly trained mercenaries from around the world. Many were former Special Forces operators themselves, discharged from their national militaries for various reasons but still possessing deadly skills. As Morrison's team moved through the forest, they had no idea that they were walking into what would later be described as a near-perfect ambush situation. The terrain had been carefully chosen to funnel them into predetermined kill zones, with multiple fallback positions prepared for the defenders. The first indication that something was seriously wrong came when Jenkins, monitoring their satellite communication equipment, reported that their uplink was being jammed. Someone with sophisticated electronic warfare capabilities was blocking their ability to communicate with headquarters or call for emergency extraction. Could be atmospheric interference, Jenkins suggested, but his voice carried doubt. Electronic jamming required expensive equipment and technical expertise far beyond what they expected to encounter at an abandoned research facility. Thompson, reviewing the facility schematics one more time, noticed something that had been bothering him since the mission briefing. The building layouts didn't match the satellite imagery they had been provided. Someone had given them outdated or deliberately incorrect information about their target location. As the sun began to set, Morrison realized they were committed to their current course of action. They were too far from the extraction point to abort the mission, and they couldn't establish communications to request new orders. According to their timeline, they needed to be at the facility within the next 2 hours to meet their contact window with Dr. Volkov. The team set up a temporary observation post on a ridge overlooking the research facility just as darkness began to fall. What they saw through their night vision equipment confirmed their worst fears. The facility was not abandoned. Lights were visible in several buildings, there were guards patrolling the perimeter, and several military-style vehicles were parked in what had been described to them as an empty courtyard. Kim, studying the scene through his sniper scope, counted at least 12 guards visible from their position. Based on standard security protocols, there were probably 3 times that many inside the buildings or in positions they couldn't see from their current vantage point. "This is a setup," Reyes said quietly, voicing what they were all thinking. Morrison had to make a decision. They could abort the mission and attempt to reach the extraction point, but that would mean traveling 15 kilometers through potentially hostile territory without communication or support. They could proceed with the mission, hoping that their training and equipment would be enough to overcome whatever resistance they encountered. Or they could find a defensive position and try to establish communications, hoping that someone would eventually come looking for them. None of these options were particularly appealing, and Morrison knew that whatever decision he made would determine whether his men lived or died over the next few hours. What he didn't know was that there was a fourth option, one that none of them could have anticipated. High in the trees surrounding the research facility, someone else was watching the situation develop. Someone who had her own reasons for wanting Phoenix solutions eliminated, and who possessed skills that would soon turn a hopeless situation into something very different. Morrison made his decision. They would proceed with the mission, but with extreme caution. The intelligence had been compromised, but they were professionals, and professionals adapted to changing circumstances. He signaled for the team to move into assault positions around the facility perimeter. Kim and Mason took positions on the eastern ridge, giving them overlapping fields of fire across the main compound. Rodriguez and Jenkins moved to the northern approach, where they could monitor communications and provide medical support if needed. Thompson and Washington circled around to the western side, where the main building's service entrance provided the most likely infiltration route. As they moved into position, none of them noticed the figure observing them from a tree stand nearly 800 meters away. Through a state-of-the-art night vision scope, she had been tracking their movements since they first appeared on the ridge. She knew who they were, why they were there, and what was waiting for them inside that facility. Her name was Elena Vasquez, though that wasn't the name on any official document. She had been hunting Phoenix solutions for 18 months, ever since they had killed her brother during a similar setup in Afghanistan. Captain Miguel Vasquez had been a Delta Force operator who had walked into what he thought was a hostage rescue mission. Instead, he had found 40 mercenaries waiting to test their ambush techniques on American Special Forces. Elena had spent those 18 months learning everything she could about Phoenix solutions, their methods, their personnel, their operational patterns. She had discovered that they were not just arms dealers or simple mercenaries. They were building a private army using former Special Forces operators from dozens of countries, men who had been discharged or had left their national militaries for various reasons. Their business model was elegant and brutal. They would identify high-value military targets, usually elite Special Forces teams, and create scenarios that would lure them into carefully prepared ambush sites. Sometimes they would capture the teams and sell them to hostile governments. Other times they would simply eliminate them and sell video footage of their tactics to interested buyers. Either way, they were systematically hunting and killing the world's most highly trained soldiers. Elena had been a Marine sniper before her brother's death, with 43 confirmed kills during deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. After Miguel's death, she had left the military and dedicated herself to hunting the people responsible. She possessed skills that made her particularly suited for this type of warfare: patience, marksmanship, and an intimate knowledge of Special Forces tactics and procedures. From her position in the trees, she watched Morrison's team move into their assault positions. She could see that they were walking into a trap much worse than they realized. Her surveillance of the facility over the past week had revealed the true scope of Phoenix Solutions' presence in the area. The 43 mercenaries inside the facility were just the beginning. Another 60 operatives were positioned throughout the forest in carefully concealed positions, ready to cut off any retreat routes and eliminate anyone who tried to escape the initial ambush. The entire operation had been planned with military precision, using detailed knowledge of American Special Forces procedures that could only have come from inside sources. Elena had been planning her own assault on the facility, but the arrival of Morrison's team complicated her mission. She could warn them about the trap, but that would blow her cover and eliminate any chance of completing her own objectives. She could let events play out as Phoenix Solutions had planned, which would result in the death or capture of 12 American soldiers. Or she could adapt her own plan and try to save as many of them as possible while still achieving her primary mission. Inside the facility, Captain Dmitry Kozlov was making final preparations for what Phoenix Solutions was calling Operation Bear Trap. The American team had performed exactly as predicted, approaching the facility from the expected direction and positioning themselves in locations that would make them easy targets for the hidden mercenaries throughout the forest. Kozlov had been with Phoenix Solutions for 2 years, recruited after being discharged from Spetsnaz for activities that the Russian military had deemed excessive, even by their standards. He was a specialist in psychological warfare and had designed several of the company's most successful operations against Western Special Forces units. The plan was simple but effective. The Americans would attempt to infiltrate the facility to rescue Dr. Volkov. As soon as they entered the building, explosive charges would seal the exits while mercenaries hidden in the forest would eliminate their overwatch positions. The surviving Americans would be trapped inside the facility, where they could be captured or killed depending on Phoenix Solutions' current needs. What made this particular operation special was the presence of potential buyers. Representatives from 3 different countries and 2 terrorist organizations were observing the operation through hidden cameras, evaluating Phoenix Solutions' capabilities for their own future use. A successful demonstration could result in contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Morrison had no idea that his team was about to become the featured entertainment in what was essentially a deadly arms trade exhibition. As the SEAL team moved closer to their target, Elena made her decision. She couldn't save all of them, but she might be able to disrupt Phoenix Solutions' plans enough to give some of them a fighting chance. Her brother had died because no one had warned him about the trap he was walking into. She wouldn't let that happen again if she could prevent it. Elena began moving through the forest with a precision that came from years of training and months of surveillance. She knew the locations of every hidden mercenary position, every surveillance camera, every prepared ambush site. More importantly, she knew Phoenix Solutions' standard operating procedures well enough to predict how they would respond to unexpected complications. Thompson and Washington had reached the service entrance of the main building when the first shots were fired. The sound of Kim's rifle cracking in the distance told them that their sniper had engaged targets, but the immediate response from the building made it clear that they were facing much more opposition than expected. Automatic weapons fire erupted from multiple positions around the facility, but it wasn't random or panicked shooting. The mercenaries inside were firing in carefully coordinated patterns, designed to suppress the Americans while herding them toward predetermined kill zones. This was not the desperate resistance of lightly armed security guards. This was professional military action by experienced operators. Morrison realized immediately that his team had walked into a sophisticated ambush, but his training took over. He began coordinating defensive positions while looking for ways to extract his men from an increasingly hopeless situation. Radio communication with his scattered team members was difficult due to ongoing electronic jamming, forcing them to rely on hand signals and predetermined movement patterns. Kim, from his position on the eastern ridge, was engaging targets as they appeared, but for every mercenary he eliminated, 2 more seemed to take their place. Through his scope, he could see muzzle flashes from positions throughout the forest that hadn't been visible during their earlier reconnaissance. They were surrounded by enemies who had been waiting for them. That's when the first mercenary position went silent in a way that Kim hadn't caused. Through his scope, he watched a hidden sniper's nest suddenly stop firing, though he hadn't engaged that target. Moments later, another enemy position fell silent, then another. Someone else was on the battlefield, someone who was systematically eliminating Phoenix Solutions personnel from directions that the mercenaries hadn't expected. Kim realized that their unknown ally was using suppressed weapons and moving through the forest with a skill level that matched or exceeded his own. Elena had begun her own war against Phoenix Solutions. Moving from position to position with the stealth that had made her one of the Marine Corps' most effective snipers, she was methodically eliminating the mercenaries who were supposed to prevent the Americans from escaping the trap. Her first target had been a three-man team positioned to cut off retreat routes to the north. A single shot from her suppressed rifle had eliminated the team leader, while the other two had been taken out with a combat knife before they realized what was happening. She had moved their bodies into positions that would make it appear they were still alive and watching their assigned sectors. Her second target was a communications post that was coordinating the ambush. Two more mercenaries died without their comrades knowing they were gone, and Elena used their radio equipment to monitor Phoenix Solutions communications. She learned that the mercenaries were becoming confused by the disappearance of their perimeter teams, but they hadn't yet realized that they were facing an external threat. Thompson and Washington had managed to enter the main building, but found themselves trapped when explosive charges sealed the exits behind them, exactly as Phoenix Solutions had planned. The building's interior had been modified into a maze of corridors and rooms designed to confuse and channel intruders toward specific locations where they could be easily captured or killed. As they moved through the building searching for Dr. Volkov, they encountered resistance that confirmed their worst fears. The mercenaries inside knew the building layout perfectly and were using that knowledge to set up ambushes at every turn. Thompson's demolitions expertise was keeping them alive, but they were running low on ammunition and had no clear way to escape. Outside, Morrison was trying to coordinate his scattered team while under constant fire from positions he couldn't locate. The electronic jamming was preventing him from calling for extraction or reinforcements, and it was becoming clear that Phoenix Solutions had prepared for every contingency except one. Elena continued her deadly work, moving through the forest like a ghost and eliminating mercenaries who never saw her coming. She had identified the command post where Kozlov was coordinating the operation, but reaching it would require crossing open ground under observation from multiple hidden positions. That's when she decided to reveal herself to Morrison's team, but in a way that wouldn't compromise her operational security. Using the radio equipment she had captured from the eliminated communications post, she broke into the frequency that Phoenix Solutions was using to coordinate their ambush. American team, this is Ghost. You're in a trap with approximately 40 hostiles inside your perimeter. I'm reducing their numbers, but you need to break contact and move to defensive positions. Do not attempt to complete your primary mission. The target does not exist. Morrison heard the transmission and realized that someone was helping them, but he had no way to verify who it was or whether the information was accurate. What he could verify was that the incoming fire from several directions had suddenly decreased, suggesting that their mysterious ally was having an effect on enemy positions. Kim, from his overwatch position, had the best view of the overall situation. Through his scope, he could see that several enemy positions had indeed gone quiet, and there were signs of movement in the forest that suggested someone was systematically working their way through Phoenix Solutions' perimeter defenses. Elena's next transmission was more specific. Sniper team on Eastern Ridge, you have 3 hostiles moving up the ravine to your north. Range 400 meters. They'll have your position in approximately 2 minutes. Kim adjusted his position and spotted the movement Elena had warned him about. 3 mercenaries were indeed moving up a concealed approach route that would have allowed them to flank his position. He eliminated all 3 with precise shots, confirming that their unknown ally had accurate intelligence about enemy movements. The battle was far from over, but Elena's intervention had disrupted Phoenix Solutions' carefully planned operation. Instead of a systematic elimination of trapped American forces, they were now facing a complex 3-way engagement with an unknown enemy who seemed to know their positions and procedures better than they did. Kozlov, monitoring the situation from his command post, realized that something had gone seriously wrong with Operation Bear Trap. His perimeter teams were reporting in less frequently, several key positions had gone silent, and the Americans were fighting back much more effectively than the plan had anticipated. What concerned him most was that someone appeared to be providing the Americans with accurate intelligence about mercenary positions and movements. This suggested either a serious security breach or the presence of an additional hostile force that hadn't been accounted for in their planning. Elena knew that she had achieved tactical surprise, but that advantage wouldn't last long. Phoenix Solutions would adapt their procedures and begin searching for the external threat. She needed to complete her mission and extract from the area before they could organize an effective response to her presence. The next phase of the battle would determine whether Morrison's team could escape the trap that had been set for them, and whether Elena could complete her personal mission of revenge against the organization that had killed her brother. Elena moved through the darkness like death itself, her suppressed rifle claiming another target every few minutes. She had eliminated 17 Phoenix Solutions operatives in the past 2 hours, but she knew the mathematics of the situation. There were still more than 25 mercenaries between Morrison's team and safety, not counting the unknown number inside the main facility building. Her advantage was rapidly disappearing. Kozlov had finally realized that they were facing an external threat and had begun adapting his tactics accordingly. Instead of maintaining static positions designed to trap the Americans, his mercenaries were now actively hunting for the ghost who was systematically destroying their operation. Through the radio communications she was monitoring, Elena heard Kozlov issuing new orders. Teams of 3 or 4 mercenaries were being dispatched to sweep sectors of the forest, using tactics specifically designed to locate and eliminate a single sniper. They were professionals who understood how to hunt someone with her skill set. Morrison had managed to consolidate his scattered team members into 2 defensive positions. Kim and Mason held the eastern ridge, which gave them excellent fields of fire but limited escape routes. The rest of the team had established a perimeter around a small clearing about 400 meters from the main facility, where they could coordinate their movements and provide mutual support. Thompson and Washington were still trapped inside the facility building, but they had managed to establish radio contact with Morrison using short-range tactical radios that weren't affected by the electronic jamming. Their situation was deteriorating rapidly. They had encountered the fake Dr. Volkov and realized that their entire mission had been compromised from the beginning. "The target is hostile," Thompson reported over the radio. "Repeat, the target is hostile. This whole thing is a setup." Morrison had already reached that conclusion, but hearing it confirmed eliminated any hope that they might be able to complete their original mission and extract through normal channels. They were completely on their own, with no support and no clear way out of the trap that had been carefully constructed around them. Elena's next radio transmission provided both hope and additional complications. "American team leader, this is Ghost. I can provide you with an escape route, but it requires precise timing and coordination. You have approximately 30 minutes before enemy reinforcements arrive by helicopter." Morrison had no idea who Ghost was, but the intelligence had been accurate so far, and they desperately needed help from any source. "Ghost, this is Eagle 6. What do you need from us?" "I need you to create a diversion at the main facility while I eliminate the command post. When you see my signal, a red flare, you move immediately to the northwest along the old logging road. I'll clear a path for you, but you only get one chance." Elena was asking them to do something that went against every tactical principle they knew. Creating a diversion would expose them to even more enemy fire and use up ammunition they couldn't afford to waste. But their mysterious ally had already demonstrated the ability to eliminate enemy positions that they couldn't even locate, so Morrison decided to trust her judgment. "Roger that, Ghost. We'll create your diversion. What about our people inside the facility?" "I'm working on that. Keep your radio open." Elena had been studying the facility building for the past hour, looking for a way to extract Thompson and Washington without getting them killed in the process. The building's layout had been specifically designed to trap intruders, with multiple choke points and prepared ambush sites throughout the interior corridors. But Elena had advantages that Phoenix Solutions hadn't anticipated. She had been observing their operations for months and understood their standard procedures better than most of their own operatives. More importantly, she had access to building schematics that Phoenix Solutions didn't know existed, blueprints from the facility's original construction that showed maintenance tunnels and service passages that had been hidden during the recent modifications. Elena's plan was audacious and dangerous, but it was the only way she could see to save the trapped Americans while still achieving her primary objective of eliminating Kozlov and his command structure. She began by moving to a position overlooking the facility's power distribution center. Phoenix Solutions had installed backup generators to ensure continuous power for their surveillance and communications equipment, but they had used the building's original electrical infrastructure for most of their lighting and security systems. Elena placed shaped charges on 3 critical power transformers, timed to detonate in sequence with 5-minute intervals between explosions. The first explosion would disrupt power to approximately half of the building, creating confusion and forcing mercenaries to respond to what they would assume was a coordinated assault. The second and third explosions would systematically eliminate power to the remaining sections, creating the darkness she would need to infiltrate the building. While setting the charges, Elena monitored radio communications between the mercenaries inside the building and Kozlov's command post. She learned that Thompson and Washington had been separated and were being hunted through the building's maze-like interior by teams specifically equipped for close-quarters combat in confined spaces. Thompson was trapped in what had once been the facility's main laboratory, surrounded by mercenaries who were using gas grenades to force him out of his defensive position. Washington had taken refuge in a maintenance room, but enemy forces were preparing to breach his position using explosive charges that would likely kill him even if he survived the initial blast. Elena's radio crackled with Morrison's voice, "Ghost, our people inside the facility are in immediate danger. We need to move now. Negative, Eagle 6. Wait for my signal. I'm going in after them." Elena had made a decision that would have been considered suicidal by any reasonable tactical assessment. She was going to infiltrate a building filled with hostile forces, locate and extract 2 trapped Americans, and eliminate the command structure responsible for the entire operation. She would be doing this alone, with limited ammunition, and no backup plan if things went wrong. But Elena had spent 18 months preparing for exactly this type of scenario. She knew Phoenix Solutions' procedures, their equipment, their personnel, and, most importantly, their weaknesses. They had become overconfident after months of successful operations against Western Special Forces units. They weren't expecting to face someone who understood their methods as well as they did. The first explosion lit up the night sky as the primary power transformer erupted in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Elena was already moving toward the building when the lights went out in the eastern wing where Thompson was trapped. Inside the facility, chaos erupted as mercenaries tried to adapt to the sudden loss of power and communications. Emergency lighting provided minimal illumination, and their night vision equipment was being interfered with by the electrical fires caused by the transformer explosion. Elena entered the building through a maintenance tunnel that connected to the original facility's heating system. The tunnel was cramped and filled with pipes and cables, but it allowed her to move through the building without encountering the mercenaries who were guarding the main corridors. She emerged in a utility room adjacent to the laboratory where Thompson was trapped. Through the walls, she could hear automatic weapons fire and the distinctive sound of gas grenades detonating. Thompson was still alive and fighting, but his ammunition had to be running low. Elena moved through the darkened corridors with the confidence of someone who had memorized the building's layout. She eliminated 2 mercenaries who were moving toward Thompson's position, taking their weapons and ammunition for her own use. The second explosion eliminated power to the building's central section just as Elena reached the laboratory where Thompson was making his stand. She used the confusion caused by the blast to eliminate the mercenaries who had been surrounding his position, shooting them through windows and doorways before they realized they were under attack from an unexpected direction. "American in the laboratory, this is Ghost. Stay down and follow my voice." Thompson heard the words and realized that their mysterious ally had somehow entered the building to extract him personally. He had been preparing for what he assumed would be his final stand when the enemy forces suddenly stopped their coordinated assault and began falling to precise sniper fire from positions they hadn't expected. Elena led Thompson through corridors filled with smoke and confusion, using her knowledge of the building's hidden passages to avoid the main mercenary forces that were trying to respond to the multiple explosions and the unexpected appearance of a hostile force inside their supposedly secure facility. The third explosion eliminated power to the remaining section of the building just as Elena and Thompson reached the maintenance room where Washington had taken refuge. Elena eliminated the mercenaries who were preparing to breach Washington's position, then extracted both Americans through a service tunnel that led to the building's original loading dock. Outside the facility, Morrison's team was engaged in the fiercest fighting of their careers. Kozlov had ordered all available mercenaries to converge on their positions, correctly assuming that the explosions inside the building were part of a coordinated assault designed to extract the trapped Americans. Kim and Mason were running low on ammunition and had been forced to abandon their positions on the eastern ridge when enemy forces began coordinating indirect fire against their location. They had rejoined Morrison's main group, but their defensive perimeter was shrinking under constant pressure from multiple directions. Elena emerged from the building with Thompson and Washington just as red tracer rounds began arcing across the sky, and Morrison signaled that his ammunition was critically low and they needed to execute the escape plan immediately. Elena fired the red flare that would signal Morrison to begin moving toward the northwest escape route, but she knew that getting his team out of their current position would require eliminating several enemy strongpoints that were blocking their path of retreat. What happened next would be remembered by the surviving members of Morrison's team as the most intense 15 minutes of combat they had ever experienced. Elena systematically eliminated enemy positions while Morrison's team moved through the forest under covering fire from their mysterious ally. Elena's marksmanship was unlike anything they had ever witnessed. Moving through the darkness with impossible speed and precision, she eliminated targets at ranges that should have been impossible with the weapons she was using. Mercenaries who thought they were safely concealed found themselves under accurate fire from directions they hadn't expected. But Elena was paying a price for her aggressive tactics. She had been spotted by several enemy teams and was now being actively hunted by mercenaries who understood that eliminating the unknown sniper was their key to regaining control of the situation. As Morrison's team reached the old logging road and began their escape toward the secondary extraction point, Elena found herself surrounded by enemy forces who had finally managed to coordinate their response to her presence. She had saved the Americans, but now she was trapped in the same type of situation that had killed her brother 18 months earlier. The difference was that Elena had been preparing for this moment since Miguel's death. She had always known that her war against Phoenix Solutions would probably end with her own death, and she had made peace with that possibility long ago. But Elena wasn't finished yet. Kozlov was still alive, and as long as he survived, Phoenix Solutions would continue killing Special Forces operators around the world. She had one more mission to complete before her war could end. Elena crouched behind a fallen log, her breathing controlled despite the chaos erupting around her. 6 Phoenix Solutions mercenaries were closing in on her position, their movements coordinated through night vision equipment and thermal imaging that made concealment nearly impossible. She had maybe 2 minutes before they would have her surrounded completely. But Elena had spent those 18 months since Miguel's death becoming something that Phoenix Solutions had never encountered before, a hunter who understood their methods better than they understood themselves. She wasn't just a skilled sniper anymore. She was a weapon specifically designed to destroy their organization. The first mercenary died without his teammates knowing it, Elena's knife finding the gap between his body armor just as he passed behind a large tree. She took his position, using his radio headset to monitor their communications while carefully timing her next move. Morrison's team was 300 meters away and moving quickly along the old logging road, but Elena could hear helicopter rotors in the distance. Kozlov had called in reinforcements, and those aircraft would be carrying fresh troops along with thermal imaging equipment that would make it impossible for the Americans to remain hidden in the forest. Elena had perhaps 10 minutes to complete her mission before those helicopters arrived. She needed to eliminate Kozlov and his command structure while simultaneously giving Morrison's team enough time to reach the extraction point. Through the stolen radio, she heard Kozlov coordinating the search for her. His voice was calm and professional, showing no sign of the frustration he must have been feeling as his carefully planned operation collapsed around him. But Elena could detect something else in his tone. He was moving his command post because he realized that he had become a target. Elena began moving through the forest toward Kozlov's last known position, but she was doing something that would have seemed impossible under the circumstances. She was systematically eliminating the mercenaries who were hunting her while moving toward her primary target. The second mercenary died when Elena appeared behind him like a ghost, her suppressed pistol ending his life with a single shot to the base of his skull. She was gone before his body hit the ground, already positioning herself for the next engagement. Kim, from his position with Morrison's retreating team, watched through his scope as their mysterious ally continued her deadly work. He could see muzzle flashes in the forest behind them, but they were appearing and disappearing so quickly that it was difficult to track the battle's progression. "Someone's buying us time," Kim reported over the radio. "Ghost is still engaging multiple hostiles." Morrison understood that their unknown ally was sacrificing herself to ensure their escape. It went against everything he believed about leaving team members behind, but he also understood that there was nothing his team could do to help her without compromising their own escape and making her sacrifice meaningless. Elena had eliminated 4 of the 6 mercenaries who were hunting her when she finally located Kozlov's command post. He had moved to a reinforced bunker about 800 meters from the main facility, a position that was protected by both natural terrain and carefully placed defensive positions. Through her scope, Elena could see Kozlov standing outside the bunker, directing his remaining forces through radio communications. He was approximately 600 meters away, a difficult shot under ideal conditions, nearly impossible given the darkness, intervening vegetation, and the fact that she was being actively hunted by professional soldiers. But Elena had been preparing for this shot for 18 months. She had practiced it hundreds of times on rifle ranges, in different weather conditions, at different times of day. She knew her rifle's capabilities better than she knew her own heartbeat. Elena found a shooting position that gave her a clear line of sight to Kozlov's location, but taking the shot would reveal her position to the remaining mercenaries who were searching for her. She would have one chance to eliminate her target before enemy fire made her position untenable. Through her scope, Elena watched Kozlov as he coordinated the search for Morrison's team and herself. This was the man responsible for Miguel's death, along with dozens of other Special Forces operators who had died in Phoenix Solutions' carefully planned ambushes. This was her chance to end his war against the world's elite military units. Elena controlled her breathing, adjusted for wind and distance, and placed her crosshairs on Kozlov's center mass. At 600 meters in darkness, a headshot would be too risky. She needed to ensure a killing shot with her first round because she wouldn't get a second chance. The shot broke like thunder across the forest, Elena's rifle sending a .308 round through the night air with deadly precision. Through her scope, she watched Kozlov collapse as the bullet found its mark, the man who had killed her brother finally, paying the price for his crimes. But Elena's mission wasn't complete yet. Phoenix Solutions' organizational structure meant that eliminating Kozlov wouldn't end their operations unless she also destroyed their operational records and communication systems. The bunker contained everything: personnel files, operation plans, client databases, and financial records that could be used to identify and eliminate the rest of the organization. Elena had prepared for this possibility. Her backpack contained thermite charges specifically designed to destroy electronic equipment and documents. If she could reach the bunker, she could eliminate Phoenix Solutions' ability to continue their operations even if some of their personnel survived. The problem was that Kozlov's death had alerted every remaining mercenary in the area to her location. They knew where the shot had come from, and they were converging on her position with the intention of killing or capturing the person responsible for destroying their operation. Elena began moving toward the bunker, but she was no longer trying to remain hidden. Speed was more important than stealth now. She needed to reach the bunker before the mercenaries could organize an effective defense of their command post. The forest erupted in gunfire as Elena sprinted through the trees, enemy rounds cutting through branches and shattering tree trunks around her. She was moving through what military tacticians would call a beaten zone, an area where enemy fire was so concentrated that survival seemed impossible. But Elena had advantages that her enemies didn't fully understand. She had been training specifically for this type of engagement, practicing movement under fire until it became as natural as breathing. More importantly, she was fighting for something larger than her own survival. She was fighting to ensure that no more Special Forces operators would die in Phoenix Solutions ambushes. Elena reached the bunker's perimeter just as the helicopters arrived overhead, their searchlights turning night into day as they searched for Morrison's team. The bunker was protected by 3 mercenaries who had taken defensive positions around the entrance, but they were looking outward, watching for threats from the forest rather than someone approaching from Kozlov's direction. Elena eliminated all 3 guards in rapid succession, her suppressed rifle making barely a whisper as each round found its target. She was through the bunker's entrance before their bodies hit the ground. Inside the bunker, Elena found exactly what she had expected: banks of computer equipment, communication systems, and filing cabinets filled with operational documents. This was Phoenix Solutions' nerve center, the place where they planned their ambushes and coordinated their war against special forces units around the world. Elena began placing thermite charges on the most critical equipment while downloading data from the computer systems onto portable drives. The information she was collecting would be invaluable to intelligence agencies trying to track down Phoenix Solutions' remaining personnel and clients. Through the bunker's radio system, Elena could hear the helicopters coordinating their search for Morrison's team. The Americans were still 3 kilometers from their extraction point, and the aircraft were using thermal imaging to track their movement through the forest. Elena made a decision that would define the final minutes of her war against Phoenix Solutions. She could escape from the bunker and attempt to evade the mercenaries who were still searching for her, or she could use the bunker's communication system to mislead the helicopter crews and give Morrison's team the time they needed to reach safety. Elena chose to save the Americans, even though doing so would eliminate any chance of her own escape. She activated the thermite charges with a 30-minute delay, then began broadcasting false information over Phoenix Solutions' radio frequencies. "Alpha Team, this is Command," Elena said, using Kozlov's radio call sign and mimicking his accent. "American forces have been located moving southeast toward Checkpoint 7. Redirect air assets to intercept." The helicopter crews responded immediately, turning away from Morrison's actual position and moving toward an area where they would find nothing but empty forest. Elena continued broadcasting false reports and misleading orders, using her knowledge of Phoenix Solutions' procedures to confuse their search efforts. Elena's deception bought Morrison's team the time they needed to reach their extraction point, but it also revealed her location to the surviving mercenaries. They realized that someone had taken control of their command post and was actively sabotaging their operations. Elena could hear voices outside the bunker as enemy forces began surrounding her position. She had perhaps 10 minutes before the thermite charges would destroy everything in the bunker, and the mercenaries would certainly reach her before then. Elena had accepted long ago that her war against Phoenix Solutions would probably end with her death. She had always known that she was trading her life for the chance to prevent other families from experiencing the loss that had consumed her since Miguel's death. But Elena wasn't finished fighting yet. She still had weapons, ammunition, and the knowledge that Morrison's team was safely away from the immediate danger zone. If she was going to die in this bunker, she would take as many Phoenix Solutions operatives with her as possible. Elena prepared defensive positions inside the bunker while monitoring radio communications from the search helicopters. The aircraft crews were reporting that they had found no trace of the American team at Checkpoint 7 and were requesting new search coordinates. Through the bunker's surveillance system, Elena could see mercenaries positioning themselves around the entrance. They knew she was trapped inside, but they also knew that she was the person responsible for destroying their operation. They would be cautious, professional, and absolutely determined to capture or kill her. Elena checked her weapons one final time and settled into a position that would give her the best possible fields of fire when the mercenaries breached the bunker. She had eliminated Kozlov, destroyed Phoenix Solutions' operational capabilities, and given Morrison's team the chance to escape. Her brother Miguel would be proud of what she had accomplished, but her mission still wasn't complete. She needed to survive the next 10 minutes until the thermite charges could destroy the remaining evidence of Phoenix Solutions' operations. The final battle of Elena's war was about to begin, and it would determine whether Phoenix Solutions could rebuild their organization or whether their threat to special forces units around the world had been eliminated permanently. Outside the bunker, the mercenaries were preparing for an assault against an opponent who had already proven herself capable of defeating their best operatives. They knew they were facing someone exceptional, but they had no idea that they were about to confront a warrior who had been training specifically for this moment since the day her brother died. Elena's war was entering its final phase, and she intended to make Phoenix Solutions pay the highest possible price for everything they had done. Elena counted 13 mercenaries surrounding the bunker, their positions carefully chosen to provide overlapping fields of fire while maintaining cover from her defensive position inside. These weren't the amateur contractors she had been eliminating throughout the forest. These were Phoenix Solutions elite operatives, the survivors of dozens of similar operations who had been specifically chosen for their ability to handle unexpected complications. Through the bunker's external cameras, Elena watched their methodical preparation for the assault. They were using military-grade breaching charges, coordinated timing, and suppression tactics that she recognized from her own training. In 8 minutes, the thermite charges would destroy everything in the bunker. Elena needed to survive that long while preventing the mercenaries from disarming the charges or escaping with any operational intelligence. The first breach came exactly as Elena had anticipated. Explosive charges blew open the bunker's main entrance while flashbang grenades detonated throughout the interior, designed to disorient defenders and provide cover for the assault team. But Elena had been expecting this and had positioned herself in a section of the bunker that would be protected from the initial blast effects. Elena's first shots eliminated 2 mercenaries as they came through the smoking entrance, their night vision equipment useless in the chaotic aftermath of the explosions. She had positioned herself behind an overturned desk that provided both cover and a clear view of the main corridors, allowing her to engage targets while remaining protected from return fire. But the mercenaries adapted quickly to her tactics. Instead of continuing their frontal assault, they began using explosive charges to create new entry points through the bunker's walls. Elena found herself fighting enemies who were entering from multiple directions simultaneously, their movements coordinated through radio communications that she could no longer monitor. Elena's ammunition was running low, but her accuracy remained deadly. Each shot eliminated a target, but for every mercenary she killed, the others learned more about her position and capabilities. They were professionals who understood how to adapt their tactics based on the defenders' response patterns. Elena heard Morrison's voice crackle through her radio, transmitted from what must have been the extraction point. "Ghost, this is Eagle 6. We're clear and requesting immediate air support for your position." Elena smiled grimly as she reloaded her rifle. Morrison's team had reached safety, but there would be no air support coming to her rescue. The entire operation had been conducted without official authorization, which meant that no government would acknowledge her actions or provide assistance. She was completely on her own, exactly as she had been since beginning her war against Phoenix Solutions. "Eagle 6, this is Ghost," Elena replied while engaging another mercenary who was attempting to flank her position. "Mission accomplished. Take care of yourselves." Elena switched off her radio, knowing that this would be her final communication with the Americans she had saved. Her war was ending exactly as she had always known it would, alone, surrounded by enemies, fighting to the last round. The mercenaries had learned to respect Elena's marksmanship and had begun using indirect attack methods. They were throwing fragmentation grenades into her general area while positioning themselves to take advantage of the explosion's effects. Elena was forced to constantly change positions within the bunker's confines, making her increasingly vulnerable to coordinated assault. Elena's radio crackled with an unexpected transmission. "All units, this is Phoenix Actual. Facility evacuation in 5 minutes. Destroy everything and withdraw to secondary positions." Elena realized that Phoenix Solutions had decided to abandon their current operation rather than continue losing personnel to her resistance. They were going to destroy the bunker with her inside it, eliminating both Elena and any evidence of their activities in a single action. Elena looked at the timer on her thermite charges, 4 minutes until detonation. If she could survive that long, her mission would be complete regardless of what Phoenix Solutions did to the bunker. But 4 minutes was an eternity when facing professional soldiers who were determined to kill her before evacuating the area. Elena made a decision that would have been considered insane under any rational analysis. Instead of remaining in her defensive position and trying to survive until the charges detonated, she went on the offensive. Moving through the bunker's corridors with her remaining ammunition, Elena began hunting the mercenaries who were hunting her. The first mercenary died when Elena appeared behind him like a ghost, her combat knife finding its target before he could turn around. Elena took his weapons and ammunition, then melted back into the shadows before his teammates could respond to his disappearance. Elena was using the bunker's layout and her intimate knowledge of Phoenix Solutions' tactical procedures to turn the hunters into the hunted. The mercenaries had been trained to assault defended positions, but they hadn't been prepared to face an opponent who understood their methods as well as they did. The second and third mercenaries died in rapid succession as Elena moved through the bunker like a predator stalking prey. She was using every skill she had learned during her military service, enhanced by 18 months of focused training for exactly this type of engagement. Outside the bunker, the surviving Phoenix Solutions operatives were becoming increasingly concerned about the lack of radio communications from their assault team. They could hear gunfire and explosions from inside the bunker, but none of their people were responding to calls for status reports. Elena eliminated the fourth mercenary just as alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Someone had decided that the assault was taking too long and had initiated emergency destruction protocols. Elena could hear the distinctive sound of demolition charges being armed in various parts of the complex. Elena checked her timer, 2 minutes until her thermite charges would detonate. She had eliminated 8 of the 13 mercenaries who had entered the bunker, but the remaining 5 were professional enough to realize that something had gone catastrophically wrong with their operation. Elena could hear them calling for immediate evacuation over their radio system, but she also heard something else, the sound of additional explosive charges being placed around the bunker's exterior. Phoenix Solutions was going to destroy the entire structure rather than risk having their operational secrets exposed. Elena had 90 seconds to decide whether to attempt an escape or remain in the bunker to ensure that the thermite charges completed their mission. If she tried to escape, there was a chance that the mercenaries might be able to disarm her charges before they detonated. If she stayed, she would die, but Phoenix Solutions' operational capabilities would be destroyed permanently. Elena chose to complete her mission. She positioned herself in the bunker's communications center, surrounded by the computer systems and files that contained Phoenix Solutions' most sensitive information. The thermite charges would ensure that everything was destroyed, but she could use her remaining ammunition to prevent any last-minute attempts to evacuate critical intelligence. The surviving mercenaries made one final attempt to reach her position, but Elena's accurate fire forced them to withdraw toward the exits. They realized that their mysterious opponent was willing to die to complete whatever mission she was pursuing, and they weren't prepared to make the same sacrifice. Elena heard the sound of the last mercenaries evacuating the bunker, followed by the distinctive whine of helicopter rotors as Phoenix Solutions withdrew their remaining personnel from the area. In 30 seconds, her thermite charges would begin burning through every piece of electronic equipment and every document in the facility. Elena used those final seconds to complete one last task. She activated an emergency beacon that would guide search and rescue teams to the bunker's location after the destruction was complete. The beacon contained data drives with all the information she had downloaded about Phoenix Solutions operations, clients, and personnel. Elena had spent 18 months preparing for this moment, and she had achieved everything she had set out to accomplish. Kozlov was dead. Phoenix Solutions' operational capabilities had been destroyed. Morrison's team had escaped safely. The organization responsible for Miguel's death had been eliminated as an effective fighting force. Elena closed her eyes and thought about her brother as the thermite charges began their work. Miguel would have been proud of what she had accomplished, but, more importantly, no other families would experience the loss that had consumed her since his death. The thermite charges burned through the bunker's contents with devastating efficiency, destroying computers, files, communication systems, and anything else that could be used to rebuild Phoenix Solutions operations. The heat was intense enough to melt steel and incinerate documents, ensuring that nothing would survive to provide intelligence to the organization's remaining members. When the charges finished their work, Elena was gone, but so was Phoenix Solutions' ability to continue their war against special forces units around the world. The organization that had seemed unstoppable had been destroyed by one woman's determination to prevent other families from suffering the loss she had experienced. Morrison's team reached their extraction point and was evacuated without further incident. Their official mission report listed Operation Silent Thunder as a failure due to compromised intelligence and enemy action. No mention was made of their mysterious ally or the true nature of what they had encountered in the Romanian forest. 3 weeks later, intelligence agencies around the world began receiving data packages containing detailed information about Phoenix Solutions operations, personnel, and clients. The information led to arrests and prosecutions in 17 countries, effectively eliminating the remnants of the organization that Elena had not been able to destroy personally. Elena's body was never found, but search teams did locate the emergency beacon she had activated along with the data drives containing Phoenix Solutions' operational secrets. Her true identity remained classified, but her actions saved the lives of dozens of Special Forces operators who would have been targeted in future Phoenix Solutions operations. The official records list Elena Vasquez as killed in action during an unauthorized operation against international arms dealers. Her family was told that she died serving her country, which was true even if the specific circumstances remained classified. Morrison would later say that Ghost had been the most skilled operator he had ever encountered, someone who had understood warfare at a level that transcended normal military training. He never learned her real name or discovered why she had risked everything to save his team, but he never forgot the debt he owed to the woman who had appeared from nowhere to give them a chance at survival. Elena's war against Phoenix Solutions had ended exactly as she had always known it would, with her death and the complete destruction of the organization that had killed her brother. But her sacrifice had meaning beyond personal vengeance. She had eliminated a threat that had been systematically hunting and killing the world's most elite soldiers. In the end, Elena's story became part of the classified records that document the secret wars fought by individuals who sacrifice everything to protect others. She had been a ghost in life and remained a ghost in death, but her actions had consequences that would protect Special Forces operators for years to come. The forest where Elena fought her final battle returned to its natural silence, but the legend of the ghost who had saved an entire SEAL team would be passed down through the special operations community for generations. Sometimes the most important victories are won by people whose names are never known and whose sacrifices are never officially acknowledged. Elena Vasquez had completed her mission and found the peace that had eluded her since Miguel's death. Phoenix Solutions was gone, and no more Special Forces operators would die in their carefully planned ambushes. Her brother's death had been avenged, and her sacrifice had meaning that extended far beyond personal loss. The price of Elena's war had been everything she had to give, but the cost of not fighting would have been measured in the lives of countless others who would have died in Phoenix Solutions' future operations. She had chosen to pay that price willingly, and the world was safer because of her sacrifice.